to adjust my settings here. Being told I can't be heard on the speaker. So in the chat, let me know if you can hear me. If not, then I'll restart it. Okay, good. Looks like we're good to go. So anyway, I mean, we'll just briefly talk about this Deontay Wilder fight. It wasn't much of a fight. I mean, I was all prepped up, ready to score a longer fight. I mean, I didn't think it would go the distance, but I thought we'd at least see an actual fight. Didn't turn out that way. Dominick Breazeale took some serious punches on the way to getting floored in the first round. I mean, obviously he was trying to close the distance because Wilder has a long reach and you got to get in that wingspan. He didn't try to close that distance with any meaningful offense. He didn't really try to jab his way in. He didn't even cover up and try to get his way in. He just tried to walk forward, and it's not very intelligent strategy there. I don't see what he was aiming for in that respect. It just didn't make much sense to me. But I mean, did we really expect Deontay Wilder to have too much trouble out there? I mean, granted, Tyson Fury did expose some holes in his game that we are very well aware of, but Dominick Breazeale was not the guy to do it. He just wasn't. I mean, I don't know if he didn't warm up properly or whatever, but he looked so slow to me. And I know you're juxtaposing him against a guy in Wilder who's such an athletic beast and a guy who can just accurately throw all sorts of crazy punches, who can hit you from these weird angles, who can do it in the blink of an eye. Maybe that's what I'm seeing that in comparison, but Breazeale looked really slow. He looked glacially slow. There was one sequence where I think he tried to throw a left hook as Wilder was backing away, and it just looked like, man, you could write a postcard and get it sent to your destination before that punch landed. So I don't know. Apparently, someone on the Sherdog forum asked if should Breazeale get a rematch against Wilder. That must be a joke. That must be a damn joke, because there's nothing about that says rematch. I mean, at this point, all we want to see, the only thing we want to see really from Deontay Wilder is a Fury rematch or is a fight with Anthony Joshua. Yeah, they had Ortiz in there, and yeah, I'll watch that fight again. That was a good fight. I'll watch that fight again, but no, there'll be no rematch. Oh, actually, I'm hearing that came from the post-fight interview. I didn't hear that. I don't know who asked that. That is a dumbass question. Man, that's terrible. Let's see. The homie, Mr. Starks up in the chat says those supplements didn't help Breazeale. Yeah. Or the Kobe 9 Elites or whatever didn't help Breazeale. No, nothing helped him. Like that was it. That it's not really much you can do against that. If you're moving that slow, if you're coming forward without anything meaningful, that's exactly what's going to happen. And shout out to Matt Wells, who's also in the chat from the Slip and Dip podcast. He bringing out a very good point, man. Jim Gray cut straight to it in the post-fight interview and just said, hey, we don't want to see you fight anybody but Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury. I'm starting to get a serious Mayweather Pacquiao vibe about this trifecta of fighters. I mean, really can't even say it's a trifecta necessarily, because at least Wilder and Fury have fought, but Joshua in terms of fighting Fury and Joshua fighting Wilder is just so elusive at this point. And this is one of the problems with boxing period is a lot of times the fights that we want to see just don't get made for various reasons related to everything outside of what happens in the ring. And there's good to that, there's bad to that. And without jumping in that rabbit hole of the business models and which fighters get paid more and whatnot, and the power of the promoters, we're just going to skip down that and just say, we want to see Deontay Wilder fight Anthony Joshua or rematch Tyson Fury. That's it. I don't care about those three names in any other combination. Simple and plain. All right, so let's just go ahead and leave it at that. I did not watch the Gary Russell Jr. fight. I know that apparently was getting some good reviews online. I know it got a good stoppage, but I didn't see it. That was the going on at the same time as the main event of UFC Rochester. So let's go ahead and talk about that. Let me get my info on my screen here, switch away from the boxing talk. So Rafael Dos Anjos just tapped out Kevin Lee with a arm triangle choke in, I believe that was the 4th round. So 3 minutes 47 seconds into the 4th round. This was a strange combination because, I mean, first of all, the obvious that these are guys who are career lightweights who are fighting at welterweight. I mean, Dos Anjos has now been at welterweight for, I think, about 2.5, 3 years, something like that. Kevin Lee is his first trip up at welterweight. So it had that element to it. But beyond that, the way the fight itself played out, how interesting, man, that you have such a grinding fight. I mean, that was a grueling fight, but it was very exciting to watch. It still delivered action-wise. It's still normally when we think about a grinding fight, we think of, John Fitch laying on you, or we think of, I don't know, a Jacob Volkman fight, or something like that, where someone just kind of grinds out a decision and it's not really much action to it, but it's still clear positional control. This had the clear positional control. This had that exhausting pace. This had everything, but it also had the action included with it. So I was very pleased with this fight. So let me go down to my round by round breakdown of what happened. So first round I gave to Kevin Lee. He landed more shots. They looked cleaner. Had a lot of consistent pressure. I was also impressed with the knees that he threw up the middle. He kept throwing those up the middle, and that seemed to keep RDA from going in at his legs. It kept him from getting too comfortable with just dealing with the boxing. And then on top of that, Lee did throw a nice amount of kicks, more kicks than I'm used to seeing him throw. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm neglecting something, but yeah, man, Lee was throwing some good kicks to the body. It looked like he was starting to mount a serious offensive move right there. And that was, if the fight kept going in that direction, it could have avalanched against RDA, but credit to RDA for not allowing that to happen. I mean, the next 2 rounds, I did score for RDA. Both of them were close, and I did see some variance on social media about who won the 2nd and the 3rd rounds. But I think Kevin Lee started gassing. He started slowing up, and maybe he was trying to catch a second win. Maybe it was adrenaline dump. Maybe he wasn't used to having that extra weight on him. That could have been it. Maybe he's just not, I think we said the same thing about Conor McGregor when he fought Nate Diaz the first time, and it was a welterweight fight. He just wasn't used to having that weight on him, and it negatively affected what he was able to do. Maybe that's the case there to a much lesser extent. But one thing I do like that RDA did in particular was Kevin Lee was fishing for those single leg takedowns. He kept fishing for those. He grabs on the single leg, and he would stay there. He would stay in that position. And I always get very uncomfortable to see a fighter going for that single leg takedown and just holding it there, just holding that leg and kind of keeping that head low, because any slight change in positioning and you're getting elbowed in the head, you're getting kneed in the head, or you're getting choked. And those are 3 very likely possibilities if you stay in that position long enough. And RDA, I think he caught on to that. And then he starts going for, threatening with a couple guillotines here and there. At one point, he also looked like he was using that Kimura to stop the takedown, just kind of reverse the position, or at least prevent Lee from really, picking him up and dumping him. And it reminded me a lot of what Rose Namajunas did to Jessica Andrade last week. Obviously, we know the result of that. So it wasn't nearly as dramatic, but I thought there was some parallel there. I thought there was something there that, and I'd have to look at it again, look at both fights again very closely and some of those details. But I'm guessing RDA might have had a slight tweak to that plan. And that's what prevented, or maybe Lee just didn't go for some dramatic slam or whatnot, but he wasted a lot of energy going for those takedowns. And that's another thing I don't like about grabbing onto that single or double leg and just not really doing anything but trying to drive forward and still get it against the fence. You burn up a lot of energy, and he definitely needed it. Going into that third round, especially, man, he looked a lot slower. He looked a lot slower. He looked gassed, but he was able to still have these bursts of good offense. Like Lee would burst into a good punch combination, finishing up with a kick. Burst into some sort of grappling exchange, and you try to take his back. Or there was one point where they were on the floor, and he was able to reverse position and take the back and threaten with a rear naked choke until RDA kind of hip escaped from that one. So there was some very good things that we saw from Lee. It's just we didn't see enough of it because I don't think he had the energy. So at this point, it wasn't the weight cut. Maybe it was having the extra weight. All right, so let's see what else in the fourth round. RDA dropped him with a nasty leg kick. Dropped him really briefly. Lee tried to no sell it, but obviously that one had to hurt. It really swept him up. Yeah, he tried to play it off with that smile, but 9 times out of 10, the guy smiling after you hit him, that means you hurt him. So good one on RDA for that. And I think that final takedown attempt that Lee tried just totally wiped him out. Just totally wiped him out. It looked like he just grabbed him and then tried to drag him and didn't try to trip him or anything. And I think once he started trying to trip him, it was like RDA was hip to it already. And so yeah, for him to go into that sequence, kind of compromise cardio wise already, wasting whatever little bit of gas he had left. RDA just looked like he had an easy time with the ground and pound, and then moving into the arm triangle from there. So now it's kind of like, what do we do next with these guys? I mean, we were saying RDA versus Santiago Ponzinibbio for quite some time. I still like that fight. Ponzinibbio especially would like that fight because that would be an opponent of some serious name value. To have a former UFC champion on your resume does a lot for your aspirations for achieving a title yourself. Maybe we see Ponzinibbio, if he's up to the late notice replacement, stepping in against Robbie Lawler. Correct me, please, in the chat if there was a replacement announced or if they're just going to scrap that fight altogether. But I think Ponzinibbio could slot into that spot pretty easily. So maybe RDA gets the winner of that, although I know he got a pretty dominant victory over Robbie Lawler before. Anyway, what else? As far as Kevin Lee goes, man, I think it's clear his future is not at welterweight. And perhaps this is maybe another one at welterweight, and we'll see something a little different from him. But man, I just didn't see a welterweight out there. RDA is not a big welterweight, obviously coming up from lightweight himself. But I just don't know what Kevin Lee does from here, because at welterweight you go up against the bigger, stronger wrestlers. I'm sorry, Kevin Lee's getting taken down by a jiu-jitsu guy in Dos Anjos. Like, I'm sorry, man. That's not going to cut it wrestling wise at welterweight with much bigger guys. He's shown himself a little bit too hittable sometimes. I mean, I do like his boxing for the most part, but he looked kind of hittable tonight. I just don't know. I mean, I would said this initially when this fight was announced, that I think I said this on the trenches on the Sherdog live chat, that perhaps this fight being put together is a good test for Kevin Lee to see whether or not he wants to test the waters further at welterweight. Because if you start off at a welterweight bout, as far as you fighting RDA, who isn't a true welterweight, well, then the only test really of that weight class is your body in that weight class. You don't necessarily have to deal with someone much bigger than you who is going to use their size over you. So you cut that aspect out of it. Now it's just a test run to see, how does my body handle this? I think that right there might be what Lee can take from this. And maybe now he goes back to the drawing board and he says, hey, maybe I need to retool something in my diet. Maybe I need to change up something in my strength and conditioning program, because welterweight is not it for me. Until they stop being stubborn about 165-pound class, maybe he has to do something drastically different in his preparation to make weight safely. If the alternative is that he just can't make 155 and he has to fight at welterweight, fine. Go in the weight room and bulk up more and develop the strength and just, work, just develop that. And then maybe you can translate that into success at 170. That would be my my guess on that. So got a comment here from Tommaso Mark. What's up, man? Welcome back. Let's see. He says he's too small. RDA was bigger than him. Kev has to go back to 155. Agree totally. He says, would you agree that Kevin's past two game plans have not been good? Trying to emulate Usman and Colby, but all fighters are different. Kev seems like a great athlete who hasn't found his own style. That actually, I think you're onto something there about him not finding his own style. I do like that assessment. I know Kevin Lee has had he's had a lot of shakeup in his training because the death of his longtime coach. What was that? About 2 years ago. So there's something to that. I'm sure. Maybe mentally he's not. Maybe he's just not there all the way sometimes, and that makes sense to lose someone so close to you that helped guide your career from day one. That would make sense. I know he was also doing a lot of boxing training with the Mayweathers, and as great as that is for boxing, the Mayweather style of boxing is terrible for mixed martial arts. It is terrible, and I think that's one of the things that is kind of stalled what could have been a great career with King Mo. Is that Mayweather style boxing that you're training? It doesn't blend, especially if you have a wrestling base. It just doesn't blend. It's like two completely different brains have to function in Mayweather style boxing and wrestling. So maybe that's the problem. Maybe it's too many cooks in the kitchen. Very possible. Very, very possible. So let's see. The UFC offered Kevin Lee to Darren Till before Masvidal. Jesus Christ. Kevin Lee versus Darren Till. No, thank you. No, thank you. See, that is exactly why Kevin Lee does not. It should not be at welterweight. At least not this iteration of Kevin Lee should not be at welterweight, because if you're and also saying that Darren Till is grossly oversized. Yes, let's acknowledge that too. But man, a Kevin Lee versus Darren Till fight shows exactly what the difference is in these weight classes. No, pass. So glad that fight didn't happen. Now Masvidal defeating Till. I mean, I think he's booked with Askren, so that's a guy who size wise matches up pretty well with Kevin Lee, but still, go back to 155 retool. I see Matt Wells saying even RDA was saying it took a couple of fights to adjust to the higher class, fill in more, get his cardio right with a heavier weight. Yeah, exactly. So you either have to prepare the body properly to make 170, and it's not just a matter of not cutting the weight. It's a matter of being a true welterweight. And that's the difference there. MMA Watchdog saying James Lynch called that shit. He probably did. I don't recall, but James is right about a lot of stuff. Yeah, he probably did call that. So yeah, shout out to the homie James Lynch. All right, let's see here. What else we got now? I did get a couple of questions in the forum related to the main event. So let's go ahead and throw those in right now. MHYH92. Have no idea what that name's supposed to mean, but it's interesting. Says, is Kevin Lee the next Eric Silva? No. I mean, I get the comparison of a highly touted athlete who has some early success and it seems to struggle in the upper echelon of the divisions that they fight in. But no, I can't see that, man. Eric Silva hasn't achieved nearly as much as Kevin Lee has. Like, their resumes look totally different. Kevin Lee has some very, very good quality wins. He's got some good quality wins, and he's hung in there with some really tough dudes. Eric Silva has wilted among a lot of those tough guys, and yeah, I can't get with that comparison. See, someone on the forum by the name of Kevin Lee asks, are the UFC matchmakers going to make Charles Oliveira versus Nick Lentz 4 now? We'll get to that. We will talk about that. Yeah, all right, so let's see what else we got. Next fight up was Shoeface, Antonio Carlos Jr. versus Ian Heinisch. This was a very good fight. This was a very good fight, and I enjoyed what I saw from both guys. I mean, Shoeface, well, for the most part, Shoeface looked opportunistic with a lot of the things he was trying to do. I mean, that first round was relentless, man. He stayed on him. He kept the pressure up. He kept going for those takedowns, just chains and chains of takedowns, submission threats all over the place. I mean, he stayed on him like a wet blanket. He got on him and would not relent at all for the positioning, and that was really good on his part. And it seemed like, once again, just like the fight we just talked about, man, that first round told a different story than the rest of the fight did. But man, Heinich, give it up to Heinich for enduring that, because that was a horrible first round he had. And also was a very, very grueling pace that I got tired just watching how they were just all over each other and just constant movement against the fence and the clinch positionings and whatnot. And that is a very tiring way to fight. But Heinich, he endured and was able to win that next round on my scorecard. He reversed that position, started landing some solid ground and pound, and looked just close to a finish. I think there was more time on the clock. He probably would have got a finish in that second round. In the third round was Heinich again, man. They both had their moments, but Heinich, I think, was just a bit of a step ahead. And then for him to finish the fight, landing ground and pound, better wrestling throughout that round as well. You had to get that one to Heinich, but I did like one thing that the commentary team of Brennan Fitzgerald and Paul Felder pointed out, that when there was some accidental headbutt, that Shoeface just seemed like he was fixated on that and not what was going on in the fight at that current moment. If the ref wasn't stopping it or wasn't reprimanding or whatever the case may be, you just got to keep going, man. It's easier said than done, but you are in there with someone who is trying to take your head off. You can't dwell on a foul that wasn't called or some slight that you feel like, yeah, you can protest a bit, but if that protest is taking away from your attention of the guy that's in front of you trying to knock your head in the next year, you got to refocus your priorities, man. You got to shift your mind on that one. So, yeah, man, I think Heinich, man, he definitely showed himself to be an elite dude. I mean, he's on, I think it's a 4-fight win streak now. Shoeface, I think his 5-fight win streak gets snapped. So Heinich being able to pull that off shows, yeah, he's a guy we need to be watching out for in this division. As far as what's next for him, without the roster right in front of me, I can't quite say right now. But I do think he's worth a top 10 guy. I'd give him a top 10 guy at this point. So let's see what else we got here. This fight I really want to talk about too. Megan Anderson versus Felicia Spencer, the battle of the last two Invicta featherweight champions. Man, oh man, Felicia Spencer is the real deal. In case you didn't understand this when she was fighting in Invicta, I guess you get it now. I mean, Megan Anderson started off this fight looking very sharp. As soon as that bell rung, she looked very sharp. She was landing that counter right hand at will, it looked like. But man, Spencer was so relentless and got on her and hustled to get this fight to the floor. Hustled to get it to the floor. And Megan showed once again, she is a liability on the ground. She definitely was a liability on the ground. And Spencer just had her way with her. As soon as that fight hit the floor, Spencer had her way with her. A belly down, rear naked choke, ends it in the first. And then we have to wonder, okay, what's next for Megan Anderson? Because I think we have Felicia Spencer's path pretty laid out. Cyborg, after this fight, was accepting a challenge versus her for UFC 238, which is at the end of July in Edmonton. And Felicia Spencer being Canadian, that's pretty cool for her to want to go into enemy territory and fight someone who has a lot of love and a lot of respect there. So that's cool. But man, but Megan, what's next for her? Because she can't make 135. That's out of the question. She is massive to fight at 145. I don't know if you guys check this out, but Mark Raimondi of ESPN had an article that came out this week detailing her weight cut. And she starts at like 177 or something like that, and cuts down to 145. And while we do have a lot of men doing that, doing 30-pound, even 40-pound weight cuts, a woman doing that is crazy. Like they can't cut weight to the same ability. And I've been face to face with Megan Anderson several times. She is a big person. She is a big person. When I stand in front of her, I'm looking up like this. And she's not just tall. She's also muscular. She's lean, tall, and thick as far as her muscle goes. So it's not like she's making 135 at all. But who is there to fight at 145? Okay, so if she were to still fight Chris Cyborg, I think we know that that's probably not the best fight for her. I mean, as much of a liability as she is on the ground, she's definitely a liability as far as striking defense is concerned. Cyborg would find that chin often. And then that fight also wouldn't nearly have the same sort of sizzle that it would have had Megan gotten to the UFC and got some clear-cut wins. I say run it back with Cat Zingano. Just run that back at 145. Granted, that was a legitimate win because while it was a weird toe poke in the eye or whatever it was, that was a legitimate strike that hit a legitimate target. So there's that. All right, let's see. We got another question here from the homie Jay at Sherdog. He says, what's next for 7-0? Spencer Cyborg wants that fight. Yeah. Meanwhile, they should make Anderson versus Zingano rematch. Totally agree with that. And for Megan outside of a Zingano rematch, I mean, that's really it. That's really all I'm interested in seeing right now. Spencer's got options, obviously. If she beats Cyborg, if they make that fight, I mean, Nunes, clear cut. Even if you skipped over Cyborg and Nunes fought Spencer, I'm not totally mad at that either. So there are some options for Spencer. At least featherweight has a new face, but the face that they wanted obviously is not panning out to what it could have been. So is what it is, man. Can't win them all. All right. Vicente Luque versus Derek Krantz. This was Lando Venata versus Tony Ferguson. This was all it was to me. Krantz came in with a quick start, with a blitzing start, was able to hurt Luque very early. As we've seen, Luque can take a shot, so to see him hurt says a lot. Says a lot, man. He definitely caught him off guard, threatened him with a few chokes, but Luque able to do the veteran thing, find his way out of danger, and get the TKO finish. After a knee, and then he was able to land some ground and pound. So the good stuff from Luque. As far as Krantz is concerned, I don't think anyone seriously expected him to win other than himself, and that's fine. That's fine. I mean, this was a late notice replacement against a top contender, a guy making his UFC debut when he was originally supposed to fight in the Contender Series in a few weeks. Yeah, man, that guy is not supposed to win the fight. Simple and plain. But he showed himself very capable. He showed exactly why he was signed to the promotion. If you were unfamiliar with his fights in LFA, he showed exactly what he is, like how good he really can be. So yeah, this was Lando Venata. You get a late notice replacement opportunity to get you in the UFC. You hurt the top contender that you're facing pretty early on. They get their wits about him. They finish you. Is what it is. But he's definitely got more UFC fights in the future, so let's not feel sorry for him too bad. All right, so let me go right back to the chat here. As far as matchups for Heinrich, Tommaso Mark saying Brunson or Tavares. I'm not mad at that. You know what? Brunson did just have a win too against Theodore. I know they want to they've got to build him up a little more if they expect him to be a top contender, or if they're just trying to put him in a gatekeeper role now. But I like the Brunson fight. Style wise too, that should be very interesting because I don't see that fight not hitting the floor, and seeing what Ian was able to do against Shoeface. seeing what Brunson has been able to do against a ton of opponents that he's grappled with. That should be a very, very impressive fight if it hits the ground. Tavares, it makes sense too. Tavares is one of those guys who, I mean, granted, I probably would say go to someone a little higher ranked than Brad Tavares, but Tavares is a guy that you can reliably put him in up against a lot of people, and get a good gauge as to what they're made of. And see, Jay's dropped me some other suggestions. Tavares in there. Jared Cannonier. He just beat Anderson Silva. Granted, an Anderson Silva win isn't what it used to be, but he just beat Anderson Silva in Brazil. You got to give him somebody a little more highly talented than Heinrich. I would assume. David Branch and Theodoro. I would stay away from those two just because they're coming off of losses. If we're gonna do the old winner fights winner model, I'd go Brunson. That would probably make the most sense to me. Uriah Hall fight doesn't sound bad either. Okay, what else we got here? Oh yeah, man. Let's go into the Charles Oliveira versus Nick Lentz thing, and then we'll go into the really good news for the evening that got me pretty excited. So, Do Bronx defeats Nick Lentz. I mean, can't say we're surprised, but this has happened before. This was a trilogy fight we really just didn't need. I know that's something that that the homie James Lynch has said before. We just didn't need it. I tried to be funny, man. I tried to be cute on this one. I thought I was going to win a Shirt All Cojones award. Just maybe Nick Lentz was going to, make someone not look impressive against him like he tends to do against anybody not Do Bronx. And Charles Oliveira was going to be Charles Oliveira and just do something weird and mind-boggling that was going to lose him the fight. I was like, might as well take a shot and see if I could scoop that award for the Shirt Dog staff picks. I failed, obviously, so I'm the only person on the staff who picked that. And yes, my percentage drops even further. Oh, troubling times for Big Daddy out here in these streets, man. Troubling. All right, so the fight itself, man. Oliveira, man, looks fluid on his strikes. He looked really sharp on the strikes. He had that nice sweep from the takedown that Lentz got him with, and set up some submission attempts. Second round, and this is where it gets kind of dicey, man. Did Nick Lentz tap? Did he? And please, and everybody in the comments on the chat, please let me know your opinion. Did he tap? The commentators saying it looked like a single tap. I say if it is a single tap, then you tapped out. Yeah, it's not like you can do that and then decide, oh, I can fight this, and then stop tapping and and expect for the opponent, if they have any sense of sportsmanship in them, to keep on applying the chokehold or whatever submission hold it is. So I'm really not exactly sure why that wasn't stopped when it was, but whatever. And then Oliveira, he did do some Charles Oliveira stuff. He landed that illegal up kick. Now, granted, you've probably heard me go on these rants a million times. I think in that scenario, I think the rules should be changed to where that up kick is not illegal. If the guy is on top of you, you both are on the ground, but he is on top of you, I say go ahead and kick him in the face. I say that should be just fine. An up kick in that position, to me, sounds very legitimate, but obviously it's not a part of the quote-unquote unified rules, so therefore it is deemed illegal. But Nick Lentz with the veteran savvy there, man, really playing that one up, man, because I don't, I could be wrong, but from my estimation, it didn't look like the kick landed with that much force or hurt him that bad, but he did look like he tried to milk it for a little bit, but obviously it didn't help him very much. So, but one thing I did like that Oliveira was doing consistently was catching the body kicks and then countering with that right hand. That's actually one of my favorite techniques in trainings, catching that kick, throwing the right hand. So that was really cool to see, man. That I did like that, and I wasn't sure if it was Oliveira just being really fast with the reflexes and just responding in an instant, or if Lentz who isn't, the most natural of strikers, who's just starting to develop a more serious striking repertoire in the recent years, if that was like a slow retraction of that kick. So if you ever have trained Muay Thai, or you've seen some guys training Muay Thai, you'll see that Thai style kick where it kind of looks like the leg comes up, the hips open, and then it cuts across. So it's up and then cuts across. And a lot of times after the impact, the retraction can be kind of slow. So if you're fighting a guy like that, then in MMA, of course, they retract that leg slow. You can rush in, take them down or whatever. If it's kickboxing rules and that retraction is slow, you can you're fast enough, you can take out the base leg with your other leg or whatever. But but I wasn't quite sure if that's why the kick was getting caught, is because his retraction was slow, because it looked like a couple of them touched the target and then started coming back. And that's when Oliveira will grab the leg. Because it is very difficult in isolation to just catch a kick thrown at you without taking some form of impact. Very few people can do that quickly, especially in MMA, where you're responding to so much different stimulus and you're responding to a lot of different things going on at once. So, yeah, not sure what that was, but whatever the case may be, Oliveira used it for a beautiful setup for a finish. So as far as what's next for these two gentlemen, thanks Jay for dropping some of these rankings here. Jay says Lynch tapped, agreed. Let's see. So we got Barboza sitting at 8, Felder at 10, Gillespie at 11, Alex Hernandez at 12, Islam Makhachev at 13, James Vick at 14. And who next for Do Bronx? Man, that is a tough one. I wouldn't mind seeing a Gregor Gillespie fight. I think the styles on that fight sounds fantastic. I think you have the possibility of what a Nick Lentz and Do Bronx fight could be if you put Gregor Gillespie in there. That sounds like fireworks, man. I like that matchup a lot. I wouldn't be mad at Alex Hernandez as well. But once again, if we're going off of the winners fight winners, and Hernandez will be ruled out, James Vick doesn't sound too bad either. But also now Oliveira has a name. He's on a significant win streak. Maybe he should be aiming higher than number 14 on the ranks. Just saying, man. So Gregor Gillespie will probably be my pick for that. And Oliveira at 15 right now. I'm sure that'll change, but yeah, I like Gillespie as Oliveira's next opponent. Let's see. So yeah, we got in the comments here. Oliveira's hands have come along. How about James Vick? Yeah, like I'm not mad at Vick. I do like that matchup still, but Gregor Gillespie is the way to go. That's a style matchup in heaven right there. That's a beautiful thing. Okay, so the main card started off with Davi Ramos and Austin Hubbard. This was domination by Ramos. I can't say I was too surprised by this. My partner, friend, and colleague Jason Burgos, he tried to get a Cojones award for being the only person to pick Austin Hubbard. Yes, those attempts failed on both of our parts to win such a coveted prize, but Ramos, man, just dominated this from start to finish. It just wasn't really a lot that Hubbard had to offer throughout the majority of it, while he did have a few moments of success. I mean, one thing for sure, man, that guy has a hell of a chin. He can take a shot, and it is scary how much punishment that dude endured without going down. Oh my goodness, man, he got rocked several times and just kept coming and kept coming. But let's talk about that last round. Well, for the first round with that double low blow, like they both kicked each other in the balls at the same time. That's funny. You don't see that too often. But let's talk about the last round, where more of the controversy comes into play, because what a terrible stand-up by Keith Peterson. What a terrible stand-up. If I'm remembering this correctly, Ramos, who is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, was working while in Hubbard's half guard. and he's trying to advance position, and he's trying to land strikes, and he's trying to do things like, you don't stand up a fight in half guard. You just don't do that. Don't they? It's not like they were just laying on top of each other and not doing anything. There was genuine effort towards offense. There was genuine efforts towards positional changes. There, all the reasons in the world that you keep that fight going in that position. I give all the credit in the world to Hubbard for taking advantage of this. And once that stand up happened, and he went in like a bat out of hell, knowing he needed a finish, and he tried his best. He finished that round very strong, but too little, too late. But man, you can't have stand ups like that, man. You've got to let, in mixed martial arts, you've got to let the guys work the mixed martial arts. You have to let them work out these grappling positions. If there is nothing going on, if you see someone stalling or they're just laying in each other resting, yes, okay, stand it up, separate it. And I understand the case for not doing it in that instance as well. But if you're going to do it, you have to do it at the right times. That was far from the right time. That was terrible. And Keith Peterson normally is a good ref, so that was kind of a surprise to me. Keith Peterson's one of those guys where if he's there, it's like, all right, at least nothing really bad will happen. It's not like a sense of comfort I feel when like Mike Beltran is there, but it's also not a sense of dread like when Mazzagatti or when way back when Cecil Peoples was reffing. It isn't that bad. So I'm like, all right, he's a serviceable ref. He should be doing better than that. But hey, we all make mistakes, so that's that. All right, so before we can talk about a couple of the prelims and maybe a little KSW, if any of you guys watched it, I watched it this morning, so we can talk somewhat about that. But the cool news of the evening, man, Rashad Evans is in the Hall of Fame. That is pretty dope, man. Rashad Evans is now a Hall of Famer for the class of 2019, along with Michael Bisping and Rich Franklin. And I tweeted this out too, and it's not anything earth-shattering, but it is kind of a cool thing to think about that Rashad Evans was coached by Rich Franklin in the second season of The Ultimate Fighter. He also was Michael Bisping's opponent at one point in time and handed Bisping his first loss. So those three walking that stage together at the same time, pretty cool. Definitely pretty cool to watch. And of course, Rashad Evans and Michael Bisping being probably the two most well-accomplished tough winners in the history of the show. So that's really cool, man. It's really cool. And Rashad Evans is a guy who, and since he's retired, I can say this, my all-time favorite fighter. So I was a huge Rashad Evans fan back in the day. Definitely a big Rashad Evans fan. And I had to suppress my inner fanboy when I got to interview him at UFC 235. He was there, obviously cornering or just in support of Kamaru Usman, who's his longtime friend and training partner. So that was a cool thing for me. So I was very, very pleased with myself for containing that, being integrity, journalistic, professional, and all that cool stuff. But Rashad Evans, one of my all-time favorite fighter, and very happy to see him in the Hall of Fame. Very well deserved. He's one of those guys that I think history will be kinder to than him during the present, because I don't remember him being liked very much. I don't. I don't remember people really supporting him a whole lot. But it's good to see him getting his roses. It's good to see that. I like to say that Rashad Evans was Tyron Woodley before Tyron Woodley. That's my comparison of the two. All right, so let's take a look at some of the prelim fights. I did not actually keep score for all the prelims like I typically do. I was doing a lot of other things today that I had to take precedent over that. So, but anyway, Aspen Ladd gets a decision win over Shajar Eubanks. Aspen Ladd, man, if you didn't take her seriously before, wake up. She's very serious. It was a good fight between her and Eubanks. That they had a very, very, very close fight in a lot of ways, and I like to see Ladd's growth. Curious to see what they do next with her. So let's take a look at some of these rankings here. Ladd is 8-0, so still very inexperienced, but undefeated and rapidly improving. She's ranked number 6 at bantamweight. So we have around her, Jermaine Durandamy is at 1, Ketlin Vieira at 3, Kat Zingano at 5, Kuniskaya at 7, Marion Renault at 8, Sarah McMahon at 10. Kind of like a Kuniskaya fight, actually. I kind of like that. I like her versus Yana Kuniskaya. I'm not sure when Kuniskaya will be ready to fight again. Last time we saw her was against Marion Renault, and her face was destroyed. It looked like she got hit with a hand grenade. So I wonder if she'll be healed up for a turnaround against Ladd anytime soon. But I can see that fight in the future. That's and also for Ladd, if you're really trying to build her up, Kuniskaya has a name as a former Invicta champion as well. So yeah, you can build her up. Because I think we might have seen Kuniskaya's ceiling. We just might have. So I would say we can build up Ladd on that. I would say Zingano would be a good test as well, but I'd rather her just do the Megan Anderson rematch. Just throw her a bone. She's had such a tough out in the UFC, personal and professional wise, that I'd like to see her at least get that wish fulfilled. Yeah. So that sounds like a good way. Oh yeah. Jay's also telling me that on her Instagram, looks like Kuniskaya was back to sparring about 8 hours ago. So yeah, maybe she is ready to start turning it around. But I would love to see that fight. I think that's a good one. All right, and let's see what other notable fights. Desmond Green gets a pretty good decision against Charles Jourdain in his hometown. Um, Anxious to see what those payouts look like. I'm Desmond Green. Please don't ever say you'll fight for free. Please don't ever say it, because the UFC will consider that as a challenge that they will gladly accept. Yeah, we got to talk about Mikael Pereira and Danny Roberts. Like, whoa, what the hell did we watch, man? Pereira is a maniac. Can he please fight as often as possible? Can this man please fight every day? This was sensational. He did everything but breakdance in the middle of the fight. I mean, it was insane. Like, he Ali shuffled. He actually did have some some breakdancing type footwork for a second there, throwing punches off the dances, the flying knee knockout, cartwheel kicks, rolling thunder kicks. I mean, it was pure madness and mayhem, and I'm all for it. And Danny Roberts definitely was such a good test for him, because Roberts is a guy who's going to hit you hard and he's going to engage you. I'm curious as to what they do with Pereira next. Like, you got to keep this guy away from wrestlers right now if you want to if you want to keep this mystique around him, you want to keep this guy exciting your highlight reels and getting everybody all jazzed up, man. You keep this dude away from wrestlers. You keep him far away from a wrestler. Yeah, man. But what a great showing. That is definitely one of, if not the most memorable UFC debut that I can think of, outside of like maybe Anderson Silva tooling up Chris Lieben. Yeah, I mean, Connor Marcus Brimage, but even still, that wasn't nearly as exciting. I'm just gonna say it, I got to put Pereira's UFC debut right up there next to Anderson Silva's, as far as just like, oh my God, what are we watching? This is something different. I'm not saying do not start going ape shit in the comments or ape shit on my Twitter talking about that I'm saying that Pereira is the next Anderson Silva. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, as far as a UFC debut goes, that is as good as it gets. And I haven't seen a UFC debut go as nicely, as dominantly, and as entertaining as Pereira versus Danny Roberts with Anderson Silva and Chris Lieben. That's I think is a fair comparison. If you don't like it, I don't care, because it's my show, so I say what I want. Yeah, that was dope, man. Yeah, so Grant Dawson defeats Michael Trezano by rear naked choke in the second round. Ed Herman with a crazy knee right to Patrick Cummins that instantly made him a gif on social media. Had him backpedaling and kind of dancing a bit. Wow, Ed Herman hasn't won a fight in several years, if I'm not mistaken. So that was good on his part. What else? Zach Cummings and Trevin Giles. Zach Cummings with a submission in the second round, got a guillotine choke there, and Julio Arce murders Julian Erosa with a head kick in the second round. I turn on my television because I was watching KSW and the main event just went off. I turn on the UFC just in time to see that last round between Arce and Erosa, and they are murdering each other. They are going for it, and it is a full-on just strike fest brawl. And then all of a sudden, Arce lands the kill shot. Fantastic. Like, how many we had we had 2 KO of the year potentials on this card alone. We've had 6 or 7 KO of the year candidates within the past several days. I mean, not days, several weeks. A lot of great knockouts. A lot of great knockouts going on right now. Oh yeah, the homie Matt Hunter in the chat. Hashtag Clapback Cartel. That's a squad. Get it right. Clapback Cartel in the building. Yeah, man. You talk about a lot of kill shots landed today, and KSW as well. Let me pull up this card before I forget, because I'm definitely going to screw up some names. But I do want to acknowledge at least a couple of them, because the main event and the co-main event had some particularly interesting finishes. Let's see here. Yeah, it's just load. Okay. Yeah, Roberto Soldic over Christian Kazubowski with a punch in the first round. Florida man, nuts. Scott Askham with a nasty flying knee over Mikhail Marturla. How he got him up against the fence, and just crazy stuff. Crazy stuff there. So we had a lot of we had a lot of stuff, man. Damian Grabowski also got a TKO finish there. So there were a lot of finishes early in the morning. KSW started at 10 a.m. West Coast time. So I woke up, turned it on my laptop while I was trying to do a little housework, and was watching that. And then went to the UFC, and it was just this nonstop stream of people getting their heads knocked clean off their shoulders. So to then conclude the night with Deontay Wilder slaying Dominick Breazeale, pretty nuts there. So let me go back in this chat really quickly and see if we've got any questions. Okay, I got one from Jay here. This apparently the Sherdog forum is freaking out about Mikael Pereira, understandably so. I said potential opponents: Cowboy Oliveira, Bilal Muhammad, Curtis Millender, Nico Price, James Krause, or Warley Alves, maybe Tim Means. I like all of those. But I'm, call me crazy for wanting the chaos. Give me the Cowboy Oliveira fight. Give me that Cowboy Oliveira fight. Cowboy Oliveira versus Mikael Pereira sounds like a well-tuned machine of just random destruction and violence. That sounds nuts. Sign me up 7 days a week for that one. I like that fight. I mean, Bilal Muhammad is another good action guy you can throw in there. Millender too, and Millender's clear liabilities on the ground means this fight is probably just going to stay on the feet. Yeah, really, all those suggestions sound good. I think James Krause and Warley Alves might be the ones I'd be a little leery of. Because I see them approaching it a lot less about, an exciting fight. James Krause is going to game plan the hell out of that. James Krause is going to do something game plan wise, as opposed to the Cowboy Oliveira approach of just going in there and just seeing what happens, like the Mike Perry fight. Like that's the sort of thing. Or Mike Perry actually sounds great to put him up against Pereira, but rankings rise, that wouldn't make any sense. But still, that sounds like a fun fight. Okay, so let's go through the chat and see what questions we got through here. Tommaso saying, saw on the JRE podcast, Kev likes TJ Dillashaw style. Maybe he should actually try Bang Muay Thai with Ludwig. strength to his advantage. He should try a Mike Chandler style. Thought that doesn't sound like a bad idea. I mean, he does have a similar build to Mike Chandler. They have, the wrestling credentials. They've added a lot of striking to their games, and they kind of have the same approach to a fight. That doesn't sound like a bad idea. And Bang Ludwig's Muay Thai system is pretty thorough, and it plays very well with people who are good boxing. It's Dutch style kickboxing essentially. So it's going to be very, very heavy on the boxing aspect, and normally finishing combinations with kicks. I think that plays very well to what Kevin Lee is already good at. So you add a little more sophistication to the movement. I do like that combination a lot. I like that a whole lot. Let's see here. What else we have? Megan had the height advantage, but did you think Felicia looked heavier than her? Excuse me. Yeah, I did, but I mean, she just wears the weight differently. Megan is what, 6 feet or 6'1", something like that, and she is solid muscle. Like, she is solid muscle, man. There's barely any body fat on her. Felicia Spencer is built more like a regular person, to where, yeah, she's athletic. She's not obese by any stretch of the imagination. She's not fat or anything like that, but she has more of a just regular person body. So yeah, in that sense, she looked heavier, but Megan is also clearly much taller than her and with much longer limbs and stuff. So her frame is just built different. Therefore, the weight looks different on both of them. See what else we got. Cannoneer versus Gastelum. I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at that at all. I'll take that. Let's see what else we got. Sometimes you gotta. Oh yeah, talking about the Nick Lentz ghost tap. Sometimes you gotta Jake Hager somebody who needs sportsmanship. Yeah, I agree. I mean, that is exactly why in training you are told to not let go of the submission hold until the ref pulls you off, because things like that happen. We know the Matt Lindland story of the tap out that, I think it was Matt Lindland, the tap out that wasn't seen and the fight kept going on. There will be instances like that. Think back to when Vitor Belfort had John Jones in an armbar at UFC 152, I believe it was, where Jones' arm was breaking, like his elbow was hyperextending, and Vitor said that when he was hearing things crack and pop in his arm, he kind of relented a bit on the hold. Jones gets out of it, goes on to dominate the rest of the fight and submit him. So yeah, you have to keep that going until the ref stops you. I mean, for all the atrocities that exist in Frank Mir's highlight reel, they exist for that purpose. When he got Tim Sylvia in that arm bar and snapped his arm in half, that wasn't to be mean necessarily. That wasn't because, hey, I just want to break your arm because I can. It was because, hey, you're in this hold. If you don't tap, you are going to feel the consequences of said hold. Same thing with the shoulder lock that he had Big Nog in as well. If you don't tap to something that's intended to make you tap, well, you will feel the consequences of not tapping. Very, very simply put. So yeah, that's Jake Hager. On the other hand, I think there was a lot of WWE style gamesmanship in that. I think he was trying to play heel and boost his profile in that sense. More power to him for that, trying to get more money and get more eyeballs on you, whatever. But yeah, I wouldn't put that in the same category, man. Jake Hager did something that was blatantly wrong, and I don't believe that he actually thought that TJ Jones was hitting him, and that wasn't the ref trying to pull him off. But what do I know? I'm just a clown in an Ant-Man t-shirt. All right, let's see. Which Wilder KO was better, Stavern or Breazeale? Ooh. I think I'm gonna go with Stavern simply because, like, the aftermath of it, like, Stavern was laid out cold, hanging up on the ropes. That visual is kind of hard to get out of the brain. But the Breazeale knockout was super, super mean. Okay, what else we got? Rashad is a great inductee. It's one of my faves as well. Respectable man. Oh, nice comparison on Rashad and Woodley. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Appreciate that. And can someone please tell Dez Green to stop saying that he'll fight for free before Dana starts paying him $3K a fight? Like $3K a fight? Oh, that much? After you said he'll fight for free? Man, when they hear free, they hear free. He might get paid in Reebok swag, man. You need to stop putting that energy out there, Dez. Like, yeah, you know better than that. Matt Wells saying, I stand Mikael Pereira. Don't we all? Don't we all? That man is a treasure. He needs to be preserved. Wonderful stuff. Can't wait to see him again. Danny Roberts sadly gets finished a lot, and he seemed confused. Yeah, he does. I mean, but that's kind of his style. It's like kill or be killed. Yeah, unfortunately, he's just been getting killed a lot lately. Like that's time when it was time to go back to the drawing board and reevaluate your style and what you do, because he's gotten finished quite a lot lately. It's too much mileage, and he's a young dude, man. Too much. Let's see. Swole Ito Portal is already a legend. Yes, he is. And yes, he does look like Ito Portal. Yeah, I'm sure there are not a lot of people lining up to play touch bud in the park with that guy. Let's see here. Pereira versus Carlo Pedersoli. Exciting matchup, but two prospects. How about Zach Otto? Yeah, I'm not mad at those fights. I think maybe I'm looking too much toward the excitement factor that Pereira brings. And I think when you got a guy who does that sort of stuff in his UFC debut, he comes out to the cage crying, and he's like emotional and insane all in one. Like, just that meat and potatoes, like, oh, go through the rankings. Oh, it doesn't sit well with me. Like, I say give him a couple of those exciting matchups and how he handles those, and then we can start seeing what his place is in the division. But yeah, man, you got a guy doing cartwheel kicks and everything in his UFC debut. Don't change, buddy. Don't change. All right. Just what I'm saying. Mike Perry and Alex Oliveira, two fighters who don't play ahead and just come in the ring and fight. Yes, exactly. That's exactly why I was saying they would be good opponents for Mikael. That's exactly why. Oh yeah. Also, Jay reminded me that not only did he cry walking to the cage, which is pretty cool to see, seeing that emotional response, and the flying knee on his opponent as he danced his way out of the cage. He was breakdancing while the fight was being announced. While Bruce Buffer was giving the introductions, he was breakdancing. Pretty cool. Let's see here. Roberts versus Alan Jouban would be nice. I'm not mad at that, man. But Danny Roberts, I want to see him take a little time off. I don't want to see him fight probably till the end of the year. Yeah. Oh yeah. I didn't. Not Bruce, but Joe Martinez did the announcement. Thanks, Jay, for correcting me on that. But yeah, I think Roberts needs to sit out for at least till like December, like maybe the year-end card. I'm hearing there may not be a year-end card this year, so that traditional around New Year's, like right after Christmas or right before New Year's, that there may not be a card this year because of conflicts with college football, and of course that's one of ESPN's biggest cash cows. So they're not trying to counter-program their own stuff. From what I understand, I think I got that from a fairly reliable source. So, but anyway. Let's see. As flat-footed as Connor looked against Khabib, he better call Ito. uh, yeah. I can't disagree with that. What if Mike Perry gets the call to fight Robbie Lawler? Hey, I'm with it. That, yeah. Mike Perry is another guy who I probably would prefer to not be as active because of his fight style and how much damage he takes. But hey, sounds good to me, man. Sounds good. Thoughts on Cody Garbrandt declining the UFC's offer to return in July? Who do you think it was he turned down? I wouldn't be sure about who he turned down. I mean, I'm sure by process of elimination we could figure it out, but I don't think this is a bad thing, man. Cody got brutally knocked out a lot, man. I was there for two of them, kind of back to back, man. He got knocked out cold. twice against Dillashaw, and then against what's your man's name that knocked him out last time. But yeah, I was there too, and I'm blanking. But yeah, so for him to get knocked out that much, he needs his brain needs to heal, man, and especially when his style is so hell bent on it. Once he, like Danny Robbins, is kill or be killed. Pedro Munoz is a gentleman's name. So, yeah. So after the Munoz knockout, man, it was like pretty clear. It's not a thing about you hating Dillashaw so much and you got emotional and you got caught twice. It's not even that. It's that, okay, the strategy or the training, something's wrong there. But either way, your brain is getting rattled too much and he's too young to waste his career by just not training smart and just not being careful in the fight. So, and especially with his level of boxing skill, it's crazy. Crazy. Munoz had his back against the fence. For one sequence, he's throwing a combination, and Cody looked like the most seasoned boxer on the UFC roster. The way he slipped and bobbed and weaved out of that, and circled out with beautiful footwork. And then after this clear display of very, very sharp boxing, he then sticks his chin out and starts swinging wildly. Something's wrong with the man's training, or his approach to the fight. With that being said, he doesn't need to be in there right now. He needs to heal up. So, yes, good job, Cody, turning that fight down. I'd rather see him worry about his longevity. So, yeah. Oh, yeah, Tomas saying, yeah, he wasn't trying to sound biased, but he's a fan and wants him to take time off. Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. I agree. I definitely agree with those points. So, okay, I'm also being asked, did I see Sage Northcutt's face from the picture he posted on his Instagram? All right, for those who are unaware of this, and I'm sure if you are watching this, you're on MMA Twitter, you're following all the fights and whatnot. Dude, Sage Northcutt got murked Friday morning against Cosme Alexander. Or Cosme Alexander, however you pronounce it. Either way, he got murked. And to fight against such a seasoned kickboxer for your first outing. It's also in a ring, and I know that plays a big part in your movement and where you're comfortable at certain spots, a ring as opposed to a cage. I've trained in both, so it's like I know the difference of sparring near a fence or sparring, in a boxing ring with the ropes around you and stuff. It throws off a lot. So that's a hard lesson to learn against a kickboxer of that caliber. So I haven't seen the picture of his face, but I'm sure he didn't look the same, or he did, and he had that big cheesy smile on his face, and he's just perpetually cheerful. So whatever, that's what's up, man. Excuse me. So yeah, so actually, yeah, the last UFC card of 2019 will be December 21st, and that's an ESPN Plus card. So yeah, it's further confirmation that there will not be that year-end pay-per-view that we all were we're all looking forward to a lot of times, because that's always one of the better cards of the year. Last year was UFC 232, and of course that came with a fair amount of changes and just plain old fuckery, but is what it is. It was a great card, nonetheless. Oh yes, Northcutt with 8 fractures to his orbital, and he just got out of surgery. Jesus, man, you gotta match these guys up a little better than that. You can't. I don't know. I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole. Okay. All right. So yeah, Tommaso saying tough fight for Sage. Cosmo definitely had him in an experience. But am I wrong, or did Sage move into Cosmo's power hand with his guard down? Yes, that's exactly what he did. That is exactly what he did. Not only the combination of moving with your hand down to the power side is such a dangerous thing to do. And you see this a lot of times with the guys who have karate or taekwondo backgrounds, that at least one of their hands is down. We see Wonder Boy and MVP. The Pettis, Anthony Pettis will do the same thing. They'll have one hand kind of down, almost like the Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do stance. What he called the small phasic bent knee position, I believe it's called. So you'll see guys take a similar stance to that. But if you're going to do that, you don't move to the power side. You don't. You just don't do it. That's what got Michael Bisping caught against Dan Henderson, moving to the power side. You couple that in with a hand that's just down. Yeah, you're kind of asking for it, and you got a guy with that level of experience. Yeah, it's not the best look. All right, so last pay-per-view this year will be December 14th. That'll be UFC 245. So I would anticipate that being, I guess, in place of the year-end card. So that should be they'll try to make a big splash on that. I would expect that to be in Vegas with with some big names attached. If it's in Vegas, I'll see what's up with that media credential and get you guys some content live from the building. But anyway, unless we have any more questions that are pressing, I'm going to wrap this up so I can get some writing done because I am way behind on my writing. So I do need to get to work. But anyway, so tell you guys what I got coming up. I have the good, bad, and the ugly, the usual post-fight column that I do for Sherdog.com. That should be going live tomorrow. I'm going to turn this off and start writing that pretty much as soon as everything is shut down. So expect that on your timelines tomorrow when I tweet it out as soon as it's published. What else I got coming up? Ask Ant, my mailbag column, that dropped last night or yesterday afternoon. So go ahead and check that out. I answered some questions about the what I like to call the senior citizen circuit in MMA, which specifically about BJ Penn and Anderson Silva still being in the UFC. Also answered a question about the bout order and title fights being above fights that are more exciting, like the Tony Ferguson and Donald Cerrone fight being underneath Jessica Ai challenging Valentina Shevchenko for the title. So a little bit of that, and then also just some goofy music talk. So go ahead, check that out as well. Did an appearance with the homie Matt Hunter on Mixed Combat Radio to talk about Avengers Endgame and just overall MMA stuff with Jason Burgos as well. And of course, you can catch me and Jason Burgos on the trenches on the Sherdog.com YouTube channel. That's every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. But this week, actually, there's going to be PFL, so I guess we're going to have to do it Wednesday. Follow my Twitter at Ant Walker MMA, and I'll give you all the details on that as I change. And I also do have to go out of town for my grandfather's funeral later in the week. So yeah, so that'll throw next week's schedule off. But I do want to thank everyone who has jumped in the chat, asked some questions, jumped on the forum, asked some questions. Thank the homie Jay for jumping on the Slack chat and keeping me posted about certain stats and whatnot that escape my mind off the top of my head. So once again, you guys are great for what you're doing, and I hope to see you again next week if we do a show. If not, I'll be back the week after. So anyway, you know what you got to do. You must stay beautiful. You must stay positive. You must, by all means, no matter what, take a sip and stay sexy. I will see you when I see you. Peace.